a lot of good stuff about V2 pools, like including like keys rotation, like upgradability, firming, etc. But it's been really quiet since, I think, since this January on that subject. And I think the hot topic is actually the liquid staking provider, Metapool included, from whom we have Mariman Alan here, who can probably say a few words about that. I'm not trusting the pools V2 partly for their upgradability and partly for maybe they're not being like officially audited, or at least if they have, we don't know any ideas when and how. So now at this stage, because every new validator who wants to join the network, whether it's taking Stake Wars 3 or possible Stake Wars 4, validators, they will be not considering V2 for the reason that they stake liquid pool providers, including Metapool and NEARWEEK, will not be able to stake into these pools. And for chunk producers, it's especially important to get that amount of delegation. So if anyone in this group today have any input on that, any feedback, please share. Alan, maybe you can say a few words about some ideas why in general liquid pool providers are happy with them.
Yes, I think some of the context that we faced on the first moment that we knew about pool version 2 is the first one is that current validators that are validating on mainnet, it's hard to move all the delegations to the pool version 2. That's for one side, and I think it's less crucial on this. I think that if we have a similar mindset on liquid stakers, is that these pool version 2 validators are mostly the first pool to be launched was Aurora, and Aurora was taking 99% of the fees from the rewards generated, and the second is that it was giving their own tokens as rewards to the people that were delegating. So the liquid stakers basically, when you go to a liquid stakers, you go and you deposit NEAR tokens, and you start receiving rewards on these NEAR tokens. So was the first challenge to face versus this pool version 2, how to handle all these rewards that are not NEAR tokens to be used by liquid stakers. So this implies all the technical update required for the liquid staking to handle these rewards. Another thing that we saw is that essentially this code was not audited, was like delivered as many things are done on the ecosystem. So it was required, it was delivered, it was put in production, and so we didn't have the visibility or the, how can we say, the trustnet that the code was audited, was working, was having all the was the job done as expected. So we take reserve on just leaving the version 1 pools to be getting delegation. This to prevent any bug that could be that could emerge from the launchment of the pool version 2. So that conversation was closed to a couple of months ago. There hasn't been any update around if pool version 2 is the new standard that will be taken. I think that the measure that we have for version 2 is that if version 1 is working as expected and is a trustable code that is using everyone. So why is required for using version 2, having all these all these points around of possible troubles on using version 2? Well, I think that the conversation is not hasn't end yet. I think there is still points that are important to mention. Some people say, hey, we have upgradability that could be useful in case that we find some bug that is present. I think that delivering tokens is useful for many other projects that can be start like launching, using these validators as launchpad for their own tokens, as was Aurora doing, and so on. So I really would like that to have more people jumping in this conversation. If this is something useful for Pagoda, if this is something useful for the validators community, and if it is how to go forward, or if it is not, just to have it clear for all the community. So that's my point on this.
Thank you, Alan. So what do you think? What do you think is required from Pagoda in general, or maybe from Validators community overall, to actually make that happen? Would a formal audit be a sort of a blocker for you, or would it be like some sort of threshold when you start actually considering these pools? Or
I think that there is two important points. The first one is I will have to ask this part, but legal liability around having auditments for these pools could be important, but I have to ask that internally for liquid stakers. And the second one is we have to be clear on how upgradability will work. Because right now what we have, I think, is a direct path. All the version 1 pools have the same code that is working as expected. There is some missing features from the version 1, but and that's why the pool version 2 came in. But we need to see how the upgradability will work, because if we start having a lot of version 2 pools that will be using their own version of the code, and they will be able to modify and upgrade the code as they want, I think there will be some red flags around that to have on the validator set. So those are my main 2 points on consideration for these version 2 pools.
Understand, Mario?
Yeah, I just don't have a clear idea of what would be the benefits for a validator to have the version 2 pool. What would be the incentive of validators to have version 2? I just don't get it. Don't have it that clear. I recognize I don't know much about version 2. I don't have it much. What I understand from the version 2 is the ability to work with more than one token. Okay, so that's I think one of the main points in version 2. That will mean something like farming. But what would be the incentives for validators to use version 2 or to migrate to version 2? That's what's not clear for me.
Okay, I can take this one. Yeah, if we leave the farming alone, because let's consider that the validators are entities who basically main activity is to validate, not to issue any tokens. So let's say farming is for entities like Aurora, other entities who want to actually launch their own token, not for the validators. And here we're trying to see how validators can benefit from basically being using V2 pools. So apart from the farming, the pool is upgradable. So the Alan says and mentioned that is not a pro. This is this is actually a bad thing, and in fact it is not. So the whole idea of the upgradability came from, I think, Sputnik contracts being really like launched as upgradable contracts. And let's imagine that one day somebody find a bug in a version 1 pool, which happens to other providers, like to other networks. Everybody's running on V1 pool and they're not upgradable. Like that's it, end of the story, end of the line. So everybody should actually halt the network, unstake everything from everyone, and then create a new pools. It's a disaster. So for upgradable pool, you don't have to do anything apart from push the new version. You can even stay afloat while you're doing this, making upgrades like one by one instead of upgrading the whole network together.
Okay.
So this is my view on upgradability. You guys may have other view, but basically the contract is built that way. The hash of the contract is known, like this particular version of the contract may be audited and then basically accepted by liquid staking providers. This is my view. If some validator decided to upgrade to a newer version, this will be immediately identified and can be automatically excluded from like liquid staking delegation, because this validator upgraded their pool to a newer version, which probably not audited yet. So that's the way how I see it. Also, the rotation is a very important part. I think at the moment you can't change the owner of the pool on V1, where on V2 you can actually delegate the
ownership
of the pool, and it's very important for entities. Let's say you want to sell your validator, and legally possible to actually transfer ownership where currently V1 pools cannot be transferred. So this two major points I see for V2, and also for like it's the fact that upgradable. If we have something in the future on the protocol level where we want to be able to use on the staking pool, it won't be possible for V1, where it will be very possible for V2. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, mostly. Maybe what if we want to get some of those benefits, a more stepwise approach can be thought. Instead of trying to move from version 1 to version 2, maybe we can improve version 1 step by step in a more not so high a jump from one version, because what I see is that validators and staking providers and pools like Metapool, I think that going from version 1 to version 2 is quite a change. Okay, it's a big change. So it means a lot of things. Okay, and maybe that's one of the main blockers of why version 2 is being resisted by some validators or by validators and by Metapool and other staking pools. Is it possible to upgrade version U step by step to obtain some of the benefits, of the most critical benefits of version 2, but going from version 1 to 1.1 to 1.2 to 1.3? Can we do that? Maybe we can rescue from version 2 some very important or critical point for us, and try to include that in a improved version 1 version. Okay, so maybe we have an upgrade path from version 1 to version 2, and it will be a soft path, not a hard one.
Well, the quick answer is no. We can't do anything with V1 because they have no full access key. So nobody can do anything with the version 1 pools. It's
okay.
And the other point is that the version 2 pools actually contain version 1 code. So when you deploy version 2, you are deploying version 1 in a sort of shadow.
True. Okay.
So effectively, that's exactly what you were saying. We are moving slow step by step. So it's a version Y is effectively like version 2 is effectively version 1 in the shell. If you know what I mean. The shell helps to activate the farm, staking farm, but you don't have to as a validator. You can keep it like disabled. So, and if you are disabling staking farm, this is it, and this same as the V1 pool, but upgradable. And just, I think, guys, we are already half an hour, and we have to move to another topic. So,
yeah.
my outcome of this, we're not going to close that discussion.
Yeah.
Right?
I just want to add to that, Dennis, that I think we should. It seems like we need more clarification around, like a better explanation of the V2, and which can address some of these concerns, and then we can take the conversation async from there. But it seems like we need. There's uncertainty, which brings some fear with it, which makes sense. So I've been taking some notes, and we can address this to Pagoda and have them hopefully give us more information on everything, and then we can set up maybe a dedicated call on the V2. We can have these questions answered. So it seems like we need more information to be able to take this decision, right? Thank you very much for all of the contributions, Will. I also noted your comment in the chat and added that to the referendum. So moving on to the state sync mechanism update, Nikolai, we're very excited to see this proposal come forward. Would you mind giving us a brief walkthrough and overview of the proposal?
Yes, thank you. Why we're doing this is because we have some problems which are blocking and we cannot solve them any other way. For example, if we move to 10 shards, every node will be forced to sync to track all transactions in the whole system, which is impossible. Maybe at 10 it will still be kind of possible, but long-term definitely not possible. And we also promise chunk-only producers to be cheap, because they can only track a single shard, and that's how they can save on RAM and CPU. That didn't happen. And to address, and those were problems because a node currently cannot download state of another shard, which it is not tracking. And it cannot download it because nobody could produce it, because if your state of something like 20 gigabytes takes 100 gigabytes of data on disk to download and takes you 70 hours to generate this data, then something is definitely not going right. So we carefully analyzed what is not going right. We speed up generation of this data by a factor of 130. Work in progress, but prototype results look very promising. We're changing the format slightly, and in the future we'll change it radically to make data representation way more efficient, like 3 times more efficient, maybe 5. We don't have a good prototype for the radically new format of state parts yet. And yeah, with that it will be possible to switch to run a cheap node which is configured to track nothing, but because it's a validator, the protocol tells it to produce chunks for a certain shard. So it is tracking this shard. Next epoch, it may need to switch to another shard, and it will definitely be able to download that state, catch up, and proceed generating chunks for another shard. So that's the problem of why and overall what and how. Short term, it's not the perfect solution, but it's the best of all the bad solutions, is to provide a dump of state of every shard on S3 and make it available for the nodes to download when they need to sync or need to switch a shard. It's conceptually similar to the operation every validator has done at least once, which is download state snapshot from S3 to start your node. It's conceptually similar, but now it's automated, and your node will download parts of that state for you in the background. But long term, we want to radically change this so that nodes can request parts of state from each other, which is the state sync legacy mechanism was kind of working similar to that, but it was causing too much disruption to the validators, and validators were overloaded. And the new mechanism will be relying on all nodes in the network to more actively advertise which state parts are available to them, to share which, and so that all parts soon after the epoch starts become available, can be shared, can be requested for download, and we are doing some minor internal changes, such as making routed messages direct messages, which will impact positively network efficiency. So why are we doing this? Because we want to switch between, want to run a cheap node which can freely switch between the sharded tracks. How? By optimizing heavily how state parts are generated and dumping them on S3, and then nodes can download it from S3. And in the future, it will be, S3 will not be involved. It will be done decentralized manner between the peers.
Oh, thank you, Nikolai, very much for describing this proposal. I'm sure we are all looking forward to it. The couple of questions I have is, this sounds like similar state sync as we see in other protocols, which means probably the validator can start the node immediately without waiting for all state to be downloaded, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then basically considering this disk space requirements over time, the remaining part of the state will be still resynced. So that wouldn't really mean that you're freeing up a lot of space. Or am I wrong?
You are not wrong, but let me clarify a tiny little important part, that the biggest column in the database today is block headers. And we have another project which was almost complete, but due to some internal factors, it wasn't driven to completion, is epoch sync. That will allow you to sync headers almost instantly. Currently, it would take you multiple days, maybe a week, to sync all headers. And when that becomes possible, you can also garbage collect headers, and that will free up disk space for you. But state itself is also tens of gigabytes per shard, and if you track only one, you can remove tens of gigabytes of state of other shards from your disk. So that will also improve your disk usage. Raised hand, Will.
Sorry, I clicked that a few too many times. I just wanted to touch on the point you made in the long-term vision for it, whereby the new process effectively should diminish some of the burden on validators in terms of furnishing requests for state chunks by making that process look for those chunks across a broader variety of infrastructure within the network. One approach to that I think is maybe worth considering, like bolstering that with, is creating a new role or participant within the network that specifically is focused on providing state sync snapshots. The reason I'm saying this is because we see that out in Cosmos SDK land, for example, where you can opt in or out on your nodes, whether you participate in producing state sync snapshots or not. From the validator perspective, that means that you can completely decouple that workload. So we can run a validator with a very stable workload on it, and then we can also provision infrastructure specifically to participate in state sync provision. And that means that we can, more accurately align the infrastructure that we provision to service validator demands discretely from that which we furnish state sync participation, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for the suggestion. We did consider introducing a special role, but we stopped because we couldn't figure out incentives in the protocol for people to do it. And
Yeah, that's
given
definitely a
the
tough side of
fact-
it.
yeah, given the fact that generation of state parts now is quite fast, like 1 second, the worst case, it should be fine if everybody is taking part in that. And but obviously there will be a possibility to opt out. How they will obtain their state parts when they need to download, to switch to a new shard, they may be penalized for opting out. That part is still to be designed. But what you're saying is you assume that there will be validators or other actors in the system that will volunteer to take part in this extra workload to provide the state sync data to the nodes that need it. Our assumption was that we cannot guarantee it, and let's be safe.
Yeah, I think that
That's an
makes
interesting
sense.
point. And you're saying
The-
Cosmos is doing that.
Yeah, what we see in those chains is that kind of public infrastructure, if you like, the roads, which everyone then kind of builds on, tend to be provisioned by a core set of participants in the validator set. And the reason that they do that is because it enhances the visibility of the services that they're providing for those networks. There's no direct kind of obligation for people to do it, but there tends to be incentive structures from foundations and so on in terms of delegation that incentivizes people to furnish that public infrastructure for everyone to use, if that makes sense.
I see. So the incentive is there, it's just not on the protocol, but ecosystem level, foundation level. Okay.
Yep.
That is something worth considering. Thank you.
Yeah, I must actually agree with Bill. I've seen it many times in Cosmos that the foundation is actually quite centrally incentivizing the validators who also are running the infrastructure by actually collecting the form from the validator what infrastructure they're running and keeping track of this infrastructure in basically months to come.
One issue with that is it's hard to prove that you're actually providing this infrastructure value. You can provide some bytes, but are they correct bytes? Nobody knows. But I see you're suggesting more informal way of good intentions. Possible. Worth considering.
Okay, thanks very much, Nikolai. And I think any feedback into this proposal are very welcome, right? So any validator on that call and possible validators who will watch that on YouTube, please leave your feedback in the proposal.
Yeah, and I just sent the link once again in the chat. Very good points from both you, Will, and Dennis. So please head to Near Social and comment on the proposal, or leave it in the Validators Telegram chat. And yeah, thank you, Nikolai, very much.
Let me 1 minute plug. I'm so excited about Epoch Sync project. I find it terrible that when I start a node, I need to download a snapshot and I cannot start from an empty database. I believe it's a problem. Many people agree with me. And yes, next quarter, I hope we can finish that Epoch Sync project and make it possible to start from an empty database.
That would be amazing. And I think we have already seen validators who are struggling with their nodes and trying to kind of provision a new one and have to wait for downloads. And they unluckily had no backup nodes available to them. So yeah, that will definitely that situation.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we move to a next topic then.
Yes, let's move to the next topic. Thank you very much, Nikolai, and thank you very much. Oh, Will?
No, wrong button again. Sorry.
No worries. All right. That leads us to the next topic, which is the reward mechanism for chunk-only producers. So there's a suggestion from the community validator group which goes on revamping the validator economy. This is something you've been working alongside on. Dennis, can you please present the proposal to the rest of the group?
Yeah, in order to do that, Kudam, can you actually allow me to share my screen, please? Or otherwise, I can just send you the document and you can share it, which I'm doing right now. Okay, I think Kudam is going to share it for us now.
I add you as a presenter, Dennis. Can you try to present now?
I think I'm still not allowed. It may require me to rejoin.
Okay, 1 second. Let me share it then.
Please share.
Also, Dennis, is there a link to the proposal?
No, it's not live yet. It's what we've been discussing between Validator working group members. It's something I want to hear everybody's feedback on that before we actually post it on your social.
Makes sense. All right, I'm just waiting for Kudam. Kudam, join again.
That's it. Thank you very much, Kudam. Okay. So basically, the background of that proposal is a feedback from the validators from the validator community called number 1. We have seen a lot of validators who joined the network since stake wars 2 and 3 are currently struggling with a running node. As a result, they're running on cheap hardware, cheap infrastructure, most likely one single node, no backups, no monitoring. Like we have a solution like Kutama who offers like monitored automatic failover, which costs a little bit for infrastructure. This is an opportunity for these validators to actually use the infrastructure like that, be able to fail over from active node to a passive node automatically, but none of this is available to them because of the economic situation of the node running right now. So at the seed price level, running a node on minimum hardware is not profitable. Is in fact profit loss. So this all means that we as a validators should do something about it, right? Even a startup who is running like on 2.05 million NEAR tokens at 5% are not making enough to cover the infrastructure cost in total. So our idea was actually containing 2 parts. One part is try to convince foundation of whoever else responsible to increase amount of NEAR tokens stake to the chunk producers and stake wars 3 or 2 participants to around 200,000-300,000 NEAR tokens, which will make them probably break even and make them considering running on more stable infrastructure on, at least minimum spec requirements. And the second proposal is actually to enforce that. So meaning that if we let validators to run on a higher stake, we also should assume that some entity, something, or some decentralized thing will be actually monitoring their performance. So for that, the suggestion was to build, to actually put a bounty up to build the stake bot, which will be similar or equal Stake-O-Matic bot on Solana, which over like 2 years proven to be very reliable, very effective, and every validator who is not updated in time immediately unstaked. In current situation, I think Alan will be able to give us some idea of how Metapool currently dealing with delegation and undelegation But I think this process can be significantly improved by building that bot and make it run automatically. So the biggest points, like currently, Alan, could you take a mic and actually explain everyone how Metapool is currently, or are we still, Alan, are you still here, or?
Yeah, I'm here. I think Metapool and other liquid stakers, what we do is basically we take the APY that is being generated by the tokens that we generate, that we delegate to the validators, and based on this, we calculate how well is performing every one of these validators. It have the advantage for the liquid stakers that we have a clear vision about how many rewards are we generating at the end of the day. That's what liquid stakers are looking for. How many rewards are we giving to the users? This is made in an automatic way. So we have like the core contract that is assigning delegation, but this also have the vision of external monitors that are looking how well are doing the validators based on the APY. So what we were talking yesterday is that this can be not enough to choose which are the best small validators to receive delegation in case that we find that we go forward with this proposal of making a bot that is providing the extra delegation. So some ideas is take part of what has been already been developed by liquid stakers and use this code for making this bot that I think in functionalities are very similar, just removing the liquid staking token. And that's the way that we can suggest to go forward on this.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I think the big difference will be that the bot should be run and owned by a foundation or any other third party who actually own the token and incentivize validators to join the network and to run reliable infrastructure. Exactly how it's done on Solana right now. Yeah, Mario.
Well, I think that the bot that both the leaking stake, the Metapool or leaking staking providers and the bot have different objectives in mind. Okay, so I think that what Metapool is trying to do is just to get the base APY for their delegators. Okay, so that's the objective of the pool, and it's good. It's excellent. Okay, so they are providing a service to people who want to stake and to want to get some APYs from their money. Okay, that's absolutely correct. But this bot can take into account other things. I think that the objective of this bot is to get quite a stable and a better network of a better set of validators which are being monitored up, not only from their APY, but from other technical reasons. And so the objective of the bot will be a little different because the bot can monitor other technical issues, such as that you have a backup node, that you're having some type of metrics that can indicate how are you performing, and if your version is the correct one, when you migrate from one version of the protocol to other version of the protocol, we can provide a lot of. If you are providing something like what he mentioned before about, for example, providers of state SIM, which was one of Will's suggestions. Okay. How can we check that? That's what one of the questions that Kortap put on the table. This bot would be able to just check if you are providing some service or some additional service to the network. So I think that that the objectives of the board and of Metapool are quite different. And I think that we need to put a lot of technical issues in this board so as to measure a validator not only by the API but also by a whole set of technical metrics. So I think it's quite a good idea. We have some area of superposition of our area in which both Metapool contracts and the bot will be similar, but I think that's quite a good idea.
Thank you very much. Yeah, exactly what I meant. And I only mentioned Metapool because Metapool had a similar approach, but in general, the board should be much more comprehensive and taking into account not just API, but also uptime, readiness for upgrades, which is meaning that if everybody upgrading in time, geographic location. So I'm thinking the board can actually make up some sort of a scoring calculation based on the factors like uptime, upgrades, location, voting, when we have voting on NEAR, and hosting provider. For example, if you hosted on Hetzner, which is not crypto friendly, you won't get any points. So an amount of stake should be based on that score. And I think it makes perfect sense to kind of put up this proposal and see. And thank you very much, Henry, for your comment. I think if NDC will consider owning that project, actually owning the boat when it's built, it will be amazing, and absolutely thrilled to hear that possibility exists. If you have anything to say about that more, please do.
Yeah, I would just say that a lot of these things, as NDC comes online, we're trying to get V1 Gov online right now, right? So I Am Human relaunched yesterday, so anybody here can validate that they're a human on NEAR and become part of the voting pool for NDC. But here's what I would say: over time, these services will transition away from NEAR Foundation to the community to NDC. So it makes sense to start talking about this now, and seeing as new things come online, maybe NDC can then absorb those and its community governance. So it makes only good sense.
Very much. Will?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for putting this together, because I think it's really important that proof of stake rewards virtuous infrastructure provision and operations and management. I think that's like a core tenet of proof of stake. So I think this is really important.
Thanks, Mario. I think we already have 5 minutes left. Yeah, Mario.
No, I wouldn't like to left the point of increasing staking now. I think that's a big incentive for chunk-only producers, because we are really operating at no profit now. I can attest to that, because I am a chunk-only producer and we have many problems. One is that we are producing not many chunks, so you lose 2 chunks or you go to 90%, and that's a big problem. So and you can get out of the validator set just because of 2 chunks lost. Even if you have been doing for 40 days, you lose no chunk, you will be out for just losing 2 chunks. And also, the amount which has been staked, as you mentioned, is very low now, and I think we need to improve that to incentivize chunk-only producers and to bring some good benefits to the network. And I think it's a stepwise project. I think we should not wait to have this bot working to increase the stake and to start incentivizing chunk-only producers. That's what I wanted to say before we end with this point. Thanks.
Understood. And I think how I want to proceed from here is to put up this proposal in 2 parts. One is in increasing the foundation stake in whatever format it is now, and the second part is to build in the boat, put up the bounty to build the boat, and then everybody can get in and make a comment. And I would also like to hear someone from Pagoda or NDC or any foundation to actually participate in discussion. Would be amazing that we can progress that, because it will overall it will help network stability, network, balance everything. Yeah, I think we are ready to go to last.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes left, and briefly going to touch upon would like to collect feedback on the communication and how we can improve it. So currently, there are different Telegram channels, 2 main groups, as I understand it, Dennis, and there's a Discord channel group, right? Maybe you could give a little bit more context.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we may just keep that topic because I don't think we have enough people to discuss that. But anyway, just overall, there have been a couple of guys who approached me directly saying, "Oh, I've been banned and been kicked. Can you help me? Like nobody's helping me for 3 hours or 6 hours." There's always one cases like that. I think our ambassadors and community managers been working very well. No complaint from other validators, but in general, just want to hear we have 2 validators group. It feels messy. Maybe we should kind of amalgamate it into one. We have Discord, which is quiet, and we have Telegram, which is more active. But in general, how do you guys feel? I feel that over the last year and a half, it's been absolutely very quiet, and there could be 2 reasons for that. The network is matured, and it's a good thing that we don't have much communication. But the other thing, people just don't care much about. Back in the days, 2 years ago, we had a very active communications between every validator out there. It's always been 100 or even less than 100. I don't remember 100 back in the days. And it's always been someone from big players like Bison Trails, Stake It, somebody is discussing something. Team also took active part. Now it's been very quiet, and we're thinking maybe we're not doing something right. Maybe we can improve that. Validator engagement. Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of that maybe is just a byproduct of, significant players like that having to do some level of cutbacks during downtrend as well. So where they probably had more ample resources to participate during uptrends, that as they scale back resources, they probably just have less to be able to participate. I wouldn't necessarily take it as a knock on what's being done in terms of collective,
Maybe Ina from Everstake can have some feedback on that, because Everstake is an example of a big player in the market. Do you see that there has been really scaling down on validators activities?
As for me, I suppose that it's a point for devs team, and they could communicate on different issues about upgrading nodes and so on. But in general, everything is pretty clear. And one point is about 2 groups on Telegram, and to my mind, it's a good thing to make one group and to invite all validators. As for me, it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So lastly, just want to say also that the DevHub team is working on new community features and revamping their community pages. So we're going to have a specific validator page on that, and that might actually solve all of the communication issues. So that could actually be the future channel that we will use, obviously also in accordance with Discord, Telegram, and all these other tools that the devil invented for Web3 to run around, right? With that said, thank you very much for coming today, everyone. Great participation, great conversations going on. We will be sharing the video and uploading it shortly, and also sharing a short draft of the discussions going on here. Please remember to leave your comments on Nikolai's proposal. Same goes for Dennis' proposal when it goes live. And then we'll make sure to host some kind of an event with Pagoda and gather material to try to get some clarity around what it actually means going from V1 to V2, so we can get rid of all the uncertainty that currently is and see if we can move some of that progress. With that said, have a great weekend, everyone, and see you soon. Thank you very much for coming.
Cheers,
Bye,
guys.
bye.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Enjoy the
Bye.
weekend. Yep.